Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. I'm joined once again with Henry, my co-host, and today we have Sandeep. Now, Sandeep, I'm always bad at the last name because we naturally want to say Nair, but how do you pronounce it properly?
Right. It's Nair,
Nair.
Na, right? So it's not very common in English to say that sort of sounding for NA. So here I'm more of Nair, so it's totally fine.
I'm sure you get it all the time.
Yeah.
But if those of you that caught the live recording of MSC, we had a technical difficulty on the very last day, and unfortunately, Sandeep was affected. Our recording of Sandeep was affected, so that's an instant upgrade to the main show, Sandeep. So we're gonna cover a lot of the same things, but no one ever heard it. So that's good on our end. It gave you a chance to practice a little bit, right?
Right. Yeah. That was unfortunate, but when I stepped out of the podcast, you were interviewing somebody else, right? Right after me. So
Correct.
I found out that there's no audio coming, and there was one other listener was putting that on the chat. So I told your friend who's helping you out that hey, at least from the next one on, ask Ryan to check that. So
Yeah.
no problem. But that was a good one. I really enjoyed that podcast. Also with MSC as the ambience, it's great. It's not like you're sitting in a room and
Right.
yeah. So
It
the
gives you a little
background
bit
was
of
amazing. You
atmosphere.
have that ambience going, which was amazing. It was inspiring. Yeah.
That's right.
You had a car in the background.
Oh yeah, that was a Pontiac. Yeah.
And next year, so they were inspired. Next year, they want to put the whole thing like where we're kind of everything is behind, so it's not just a car. Even though I liked having the car there, but Sandeep, since everyone missed it, do you mind telling people your journey into metrology? Because it is on the software end, it's a little different than most. But as we've seen through all of our podcasts, no one has a standard way in through metrology. So, do you mind sharing your history?
Right. So probably mine would be the most, unimagined one. So I am Sandeep Nair. I'm the founder of MetKey, Metquay. Some people call it Metquay. That's pretty okay. So we are a calibration software company focusing on commercial calibration labs mostly. So to tell you about a little bit about me. I was born and raised in India, south of India, called a place called Kerala. If you look at the map of India, you would see a small cape right at the bottom. That's where I was born, and beautiful place like Hawaii, tropical. And I spent most of my life there. I did my schooling. I did college there. I studied computer science for my degree. So soon after I completed my computer science, I got a job in one of the services companies that are based off India. So India is known for outsourcing, right? So
Right.
One of the services companies, we just got a big presence. Got my first job there, but I always had a dream about starting my own company. Didn't know what to do after starting the company, but starting a company was in my dream, right? So soon after I joined my first job, I started learning about the industry, so on and so forth. But one thing I wasn't really into was as a services company, we used to do a whole lot of things. We would do system integration, we would do products, apps for big customers, but we never used to stick to one domain. We would move from one domain to another. So the only commonality was the technology. The domain would change. One day you'd be working for a retailer and maybe another pharma company on your next project, so on and so forth. So it wasn't really rewarding because for me, understanding the domain and how the product that you build would create an impact on a daily life of a customer matters most. Right. So than the technology itself. So for me, technology is like fashion. New technologies come out every now and then, but the problems that you're trying to solve are the most important. Was the most important thing. So, understanding a domain was very important for me. So, with this dream in mind, and after 2 years working for the company, I decided to start my own company with a couple of my friends. So that was, again, since I was from a services background, we started a services company. We used to do all sorts of bespoke software for different industries. And long story short, one of the companies that we did the ERP system for was a Singapore-based commercial calibration lab. So Singapore is such a small place, but they have got a lot of commercial calibration labs in a very small landmass. So never knew what calibration was before, except for the experiments or the experiments that we used to run in our physics lab when I was doing my what we call 10 plus 1 and 2, which is after the 10th grade, the 2 years, so higher secondary. So we used to run a lot of experiments like, basic light experiments, weight, mass, sort of things. So all that I know was you would have a test equipment, then you have a standard, you compare it, you take 3 readings, then you take the average. That's it. Right? It ends there. But the only experience was that. So when I went into this lab, we delivered the ERP system. However, we realized that it's not their core business. Their core business is calibration, and they do not use any tool at that time to automate any of those processes. So I was curious, asked this question, hey, why don't we look into that area? Because we wanted business and we wanted to do the next project. So this was something which was interesting. So they said, good luck with that. We have tons of Excel sheets, which are, really complex. So we've been trying to find a product that would solve a problem, which is to automate or transfer these calculations into the software and let us do automated certificates and labels and so on and so forth, but never been successful because the products that are available in the market, they are not super customizable. So our needs are very specific, and all these Excel sheets needs to be transformed, so on and so forth. Said, well, let's jump into that. So they sent us like hundreds and thousands of Excel sheets. Took us 2 years to directly convert each of those Excel sheets into a program. So now we have a platform, a so-called calibration management platform, which has got all these direct translation of Excel sheets into the product, right? So now I thought I had a product in hand. So we went to another calibration lab and pitched it to that lab. Hey, we have a product. Would you like to buy it? They took a look at it and said, this is not going to work because that lab is doing something else. Our process is different. No, this is not going to work. But one of the things that they liked about my presentation was, at least I started talking in their language after like the past 2 years of experience. I know uncertainty, but term wise, uncertainties, calibration, budget, certificate, CMC, so on and so forth. Right.
Sure.
So they said it's a good start, but we are ready to work with you if you can build something for us which will let us build our own calculations. We cannot rely on you to build those calculations for us because it cannot be a black box. It needs to be like a Lego system where you give us the building blocks so that we can build it by ourselves, which will empower us. That was the exact word they said. Empower us to build our own uncertainty calculations and data templates so that we can take care of it. So that sounded like a good idea, but I badly wanted the business, so I said yes, never thinking what's going to come after.
Like how big that's going to be.
Yeah, how big that's going to be. Right. So in the meantime, the services business wasn't really going well because we were shooting in all directions. We weren't focused at all. The guys who started the company with me moved on, so I decided to stay back and give it another shot. So then we started building the MetKey that we see right now, which is a platform that will help the calibration businesses build their own templates, whatever it is, look at the Excel, transform those calculations into our platform by themselves, and then everything else downstream will happen automatically. Generate your calibration certificates, your labels, your recalls, everything else would fall in place, right? So that journey that's the inception of MetKeys, because when you build that kind of a platform, you need to see metrology, you need to take one step back. So what I realized was, rather than trying to build a metrology platform, we have to build a platform that will let our customers write math equations. So it's basically one step back from metrology. So take the metrology layer, step back from the metrology layer and see it from the basic concept. So you need to be able to do statistics. You need to be able to do lookups. You need to be able to do all sorts of math expressions, even write code in a way that the users have the most flexibility. They are not relying on our knowledge of metrology to have a platform built for them. Instead, let them transform their knowledge of metrology into the platform, and we being the tool creator, we give them the necessary tools to build those things, right? So I walked into this lab. It's a lab based in Singapore. So I would travel from my place to Singapore every weekend. I would stay there for a week, come back, because Singapore is such an expensive place. You cannot stay there for long. But a flight journey from my place to Singapore is like 3 hours. Okay. So a weekend flight would be the most cost effective. I would go there, stay for a week, come back. So like all that time,
it would be like me flying to Henry every week.
Oh yeah, sort of like that. So it's a short flight. So so what happened over those times is, they really taught me how a calibration lab works, and they taught me all the basics. So I was the student who was ready to, get schooled on every single pattern that happens in a calibration lab, and have, being able to understand all those patterns that occurs when a calibration process is done. From a process point of view, I was able to break it down into different modules, so that when you are calibrating an equipment, what are the basic things a technician would be doing, and how do they capture the data? Because capturing the data is the most difficult part. If you're building a UI, if you're building a software, the most difficult thing to do would be to build a UI that would just satisfy the user needs, right? But in this case, for every single instrument, the UI is going to be different, because the way you collect your data is going to change based on the type of the equipment, and how you report the data is also going to change, right?
Right. Yeah.
So the greatest challenge was to build a technology layer which would accept any kind of request and help them build their UI like a handcrafted worksheet, rather than pushing a well-defined UI to the user and ask them to change their patterns to fit to that UI or the reporting requirements, right?
Kind of like a true sandbox. Like, here's all your tools. Now have fun with them, basically.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. So, so the idea of building that thing, along with seeing the problem as a math problem than a calibration management problem, helped us a lot, because we started building in a lot of tools which would help them write their own expressions. For example, lookups, which would let them pull data from the calibration standards certificate and their CMC budgets based on the set points that they set on the worksheet. So these lookups needed to be very simple lookups, which would just look at the data and pull that value, or there could be unit conversions. There could be additional layers added to it. Right. So all these. So once we built a basic layer, then we started adding more layers on top of that, which would basically help them align this process more into a metrology. For example, calculating combined uncertainties. You have a function, you throw in all your contributing factors, it will calculate your combined uncertainty. Basically, it's a function which does the square root of sum of squares, right? So on and so forth. We have written lookups which are very specific for weighing scales, where you can pick the right combination of weights for a given set point with the least uncertainty, so on and so forth. So that was a layer on top of that. So 2 years down the line, we tested it out in their lab, and they ripped us off. They did all the testing. There were a lot of gaps in there. We started filling it. So the idea was to fail fast. Whatever you build, you push it to the customer, let them use it, throw all their comments, work fast enough to not to lose the momentum, so that they would again test it, and it goes into a continuous cycle. So that went for a while, and January 2019, they started using the application live in their lab. 2020 they got acquired. So they had, I think they had plans, and now they're Trustcal Singapore, by the way. So they got acquired by Trustcal, and now the original owner sold the company, but he was sort of a mentor for me. He helped me, learn all these things, and kind enough to help us, fail and, experiment inside his lab. Right, because there were a lot of people involved and a lot of productive time being spent on top of what we used to spend on developing the product. Right. So in 2018, I moved from India to the US. I incorporated MetKey here in Delaware, and we started pitching it to other customers here in the US. So since we started in Singapore, one of the adjacent areas were Australia and the Middle East. So we started marketing our product to those labs as well. So it was an uphill battle initially, because to anybody who asks me who our real competitors are, I would say Microsoft Excel, because it's the single most widely used tool in every calibration lab. And so most people used to tell us, hey, we are happy with what we have. Why do we have to move into a new product, right? So years and years of presentations and discussions and being in touch with our prospective customers, I closed a deal last year, which was, we started talking to them in 2016.
Wow.
So, it was a very long, slow, but steady growth. But now what we have is a bunch of customers who are ready to vouch for us at any point in time. So our retention is 100%. None of the customers left us who came in and started using our product. And one of the areas that we focus on is we don't just sell the product and walk away. We work with them on every step of the way, their audits, any new scope they're adding into their business, or any challenges that they're facing with their business. We are ready to step in, and sometimes we don't consider our work as a billable work on most of the time. So we sell the product, we work with them. Whenever they have a problem statement, the first question that I would ask is that a problem that is universal? If it's universal, we are going to solve it at no cost, because that's going to help every other customer and is going to make our product better.
Nice.
So we followed that philosophy all throughout, and still been doing that. And it's been a great journey. And even after our first go live, the owner of the company asked me, hey, I'm so thrilled that we are using your product, but I'm worried about your future. Are you guys going to make a living out of selling the software? So I didn't have any answers at that point in time, because I didn't know how big the market is, or apart from a long list of labs that I had in my cold call list, which I would reach
and I mean,
out.
it's a small industry. It really is. I mean,
yeah. So the only thing that drove me was, this is an industry that is essential. You cannot do away with it at any point in time. So that's the fundamental, right? It's not a good to have, it's a must have. And it's like the analogy that I always use is it's like the bass guitar in a band. Most people do not recognize it, but when it stops, that's when you know it, because that's when everyone realizes something is wrong there. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So even though it's not popular out in the public, it's an essential industry and it's going to stay there. And my aim is to help this industry get better, be more efficient, also to make this this industry, bring this industry to the forefront in a way that I can, so that there is more technology intervention. It has to be there needs to be a measurement technology company out there.
Right.
It's not about calibration labs or manufacturers. So there needs to be measurement technology companies out there that's going to help this industry scale and get better every year.
And look for solutions outside of, and Henry, now you see why I'm fascinated by this aspect, because we have someone that was outside the industry coming in and trying to create software solutions. You know what I mean? And it's one of those things, being under tutelage of a lab. I think that was genius, Sandeep, and especially a good one. Like, that was key. If you would have went to some of the labs out there, maybe we'd be talking a different story at this point. But
Right.
he went to one that was a well-established and obviously got acquired. That I think is key. My main question I had for you that I thought of after the conference, being your unique perspective, is there anything, because I see a lot of the issues out there in the industry, because I see behind the lab doors, right? Is there anything that you see Cal Labs doing repeatedly that you're just like, why is this industry stuck in this? And maybe it is the Excel spreadsheets, because you point out that it just the resistance to change, right, Henry? Like, there's no industry like ours that is just, we think we're smart and we're like, I don't know if we need new software, right?
They're rough. Like, I'm sure Sandeep has been into it now. Just the people are rough in this community. Right. If your K isn't italicized, you have, 3 people that are just,
that's good. They don't know what they're talking about.
I can't believe they didn't italicize their K. That's just horrible. Their certs are garbage and all these rules and everything. You space before, after the percentage, the SP811 rules, and you just go on and on and on. I dealt with it yesterday. I thought I had a paper done, and then 2 full days of learning how to cite references for the small I triple E instead of some of the other ones, because there's like 3 or 4 different ways to cite things, which is fun. And now ILAC and OIML have merged together. So if you want to reference them, you're putting a string together that's quite large. But instead of boring everybody with all of that fun stuff, let's get to Sandeep. Lots of questions, and there's a lot on just general MetKey and how you came up and how you did everything. I heard pieces of like a hedgehog concept. You could tell, passionate about the industry, and that's seem focused. That's driving your economic engine. And what can you be the best at? So on the best side of things, on MetKey, like, how does this system, the people that are out there, there's a LIMS, laboratory inventory management systems, LIMS systems, right, that basically say use all your Excel sheets and we're just going to manage your assets and do some stuff on the back. I didn't hear that. That case sounds a lot different. And I don't, for the listeners of this podcast, it's what you're actually coding, you're providing like base building blocks for them to code everything onto your platform, correct?
Right.
Yeah, which is hugely different than almost anything else that's out there. I mean, I'm sure who's out there that's doing all the LIMS route and who's doing custom codes and everything else. But that's huge on a lot of ends. And so how is this not breaking all the time, or how do you even have time to do a podcast? Because people are constantly, I'm sure they're you said the Lego blocks, but I'm sure their questions and things, and like just getting everything. Just if you want to talk about that a little bit, like some of the
Henry's onto something, because I am a hobby programmer and I have like games and stuff that people can play, but
Right.
Things break so often in software. Like, he's got a good point. Like, how do you and to have non-billable support, with things and stuff like that? That's amazing. How do you handle those challenges?
Right. So, I'll answer the second piece of the question first. Then I'll go for the first part. Right. So, there's a something I heard in an interview. Beginning of starting my business is, Ford used to follow a policy where, they have a conference room filled with support people, maintenance people, and they measure their metric by how much time they spend in the game room than on the real work. Because if you have less maintenance coming, less quality issues coming, then your maintenance team or your support team would be at ease all the time, right? So we've kind of follow the same principle. So we have a very strong root cause analysis policy where whatever comes in, we do not just fix it. We find the root cause of it. And the second thing is, there are checks and balances out there. It's a Lego box for sure, but at the same time, there are checks and balances out there which is going to check the syntaxes and the expressions what people write and make sure that they are within the limits. Right. So there's always, it's been a work in progress, but, we've been in this business for 8 years now. So there's no magic wand where you can get everything right on the first place. But over these years, the application has matured in a way that we have all these checks and balances in place so that our users are not running into problems when they build their templates. Right. But at the same time, our support system is very strong. Like I said, whenever we have an issue coming in, whether small or big, we go to the root cause of it and we ask at least 5 whys, why this happened, and we get an answer. Then we ask another why. So we go deep into that to make sure that if there is a fundamental problem in the product, we take care of it before even that's found a second time. So our quality process is very strict. We are 100% focused on getting that done. But at the same time, the idea of billability for fixing a problem, I do not believe in that, because it's not your customer's problem. It's your problem. So if you're asking your customer additional money to fix that problem, then you're not running your business model has something wrong with it. That's one thing I despised when I was in the services industry, because there's no skin in the game. You're building an app, you're giving it out to the customer, and there's this consultants who come in and tell you, hey, these are the features that you need, and this is what best for them, right? Mm-hmm. Once you deliver it, you are off the game, and there's no ownership. Right. But when a new button is added into MetKey, or when a new feature is added into MetKey, my team owns it. They have to make sure that this feature goes well for every single customer and every single customer that's yet to come. So that sort of a thinking happens whenever we add a new feature. And I always tell my customer that, please don't tell us how to fix the problem. Always give us the problem statement in the best way possible, right? So rather than telling us, hey, we need a button here, when we click on it, it should have, do this. Instead, tell us why you need it. Right. There's a high chance that there's an existing feature in the product which you can leverage without having to build that feature in. But or if you tell us why you need it, we understand the problem and we will come back with a solution that is going to be best fit for everyone. that is about to come, or any other customer that we have.
Right. They want a button here, but maybe you can create a solution that can allow anybody to put a button anywhere that does the thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the examples that came to my mind right now is my first customer. They had a very old MetKey program, which was based out of built in Sybase as the backend. So Sybase is a very old database, which I don't even know. So they told me that, hey, we have a bunch of procedures, and it spits out a few, some data which you need to report. So they were ready to pay a good amount of money to write a custom script that will read from this data and report it into the certificates. But the problem is, if something changes in between, if they upgrade a version of MetKey, then all these things is going to break. So if I have the services thinking, I would say, take the money and do whatever they want, right? Instead, I fought them to a point where they were like, why are you so adamant about doing this? Because I said it's not going to be a sustainable solution, because when you are upgrading your MetKey version, then this money that you spent is going to be wiped out. It's not going to be of no use.
Yeah.
Come 2020, or I think it was 2020, MetKey came out with the MetConnect, and I was the happiest person in the world. So I reached out to I think Colin was in Fluke at that time. I told him this is the best decision that Fluke ever made, to release an API that will let your users leverage the data, because MetKey has its strong areas, but there needs to be a system in place where your users can leverage other softwares and have MetKey work with your software, so that it will become a whole ecosystem, right? So that's been my motto forever. Now coming back to the question that Ryan asked, which is about where did we miss out? Where did our industry miss out, right? I don't know exactly when, but when the world moved towards a connected, technology ecosystem, where every other leading player in the market is sharing data between themselves, have APIs to connect the different platforms, even competitors share data and have connectors for each other. Our industry somehow didn't think about it. Yeah. That's where we lost the curve, because without sharing data and without having connectors in place, nobody is going to solve the entire suite of problems by themselves. If somebody believes that they can do it by themselves, it's I would say it's unrealistic at best. So what you need to do is focus on your strong points, but at the same time, let others solve different areas, different other problems. But at the same time, your product or your platform should be able to talk to other systems and help, because the customer is the focus here. So the customer needs to have the best of all worlds, right? So whether selling one brand and telling them that, hey, we are the one-stop solution for everything, is going to be unrealistic.
Sure.
So the idea of sharing data and growing, focusing on your strengths and helping the end user get the best out of the investment should be the focus, rather than trying to push a module. So for example, we used to have a CRM module in our system, because everyone wanted a CRM module. We took it out a few years back, and we do not recommend our CRM. We do not sell CRM. We say, hey, if you need a good CRM, go to HubSpot or Salesforce or whatever that fits your bill. We are going to integrate with it, so that because they do the job best. All we need to do is integrate with that, so that the data exchange happens and they don't have to do double data entry on different systems.
I mean, we've talked offline about some of these things, even in the training space and into software, into production, all that type of stuff. It does make sense. One thing when you're mentioning this, I know in my conversations I've had with people at like conferences and stuff like that, right? Because I think it makes sense industry-wide. Why not the whole industry be connected where, Henry's data on a 8588 is shared with everybody else, so we know some, is there ranges that always fail and things like that, right? But then, when you're talking about these things in a not public forum, and people are like, oh, I don't know if, like, there's entities that don't want that data out there, right? Because they want yearly calibrations. Well, if we know that certain things, and I always think of the military, because we would calibrate a 34401 or 410 from Hewlett Packard every 3 years because we had enough data on that as an entity, right? But I can see the pros and or the people's or the entities' pros and cons against that type of stuff. Do you agree?
Was that a question to me?
Either.
I'll go full in on that and ask some more, because I like the best at the world out aspect of this when you look at the hedgehog concept and the fact that ERPs, we just implemented an ERP. It's they bill you Sandeep, Ryan, they come out, you're paying X amount of money, and then you pay a huge amount for training, implementation, all this other stuff. Though sharing the data is where I wanted to go anyway with this, Ryan, and had questions for Sandeep on it, because AI is all about data silos, right? If we have clean data in our silos, and a lot of labs don't have that, and it perplexes me completely. Like, why can't we just volunteer to throw this stuff out? Because Fluke knows how many 8588s fail. Agilent knows the lifespan, right? Or Keysight now knows the 3458s, what's going to happen, when they're going to start failing. And why can't we all know this? Like, the government, the lab has to take the onus, though. The one thing that, Ryan, you missed out is they have to take that onus on the risk, and they have to be doing their cross checks, their intra labs, all the other stuff to sustain that interval. Because just throwing like, hey, with 3 years and we're good, somewhere along the way somebody switched leads or somebody did something dumb, and it doesn't get caught unless there is all those procedures.
Absolutely. I only threw out the 8588 as an example. I am not implying anything about anything.
No, and hopefully everybody knows that. But where that's coming into, Sandy, where are you on this share? Like with MetKey, can all the users like band together, or is it more on the proprietary side of things? Meaning proprietary, and I'm using the wrong word. Meaning like your customers just don't want that shared with anybody else.
Right. So great question. So it takes a lot of education. You cannot just go in there and, I've tried, we have the infrastructure in place, but without their consent, we cannot do anything. But now I'm trying to educate my users of the benefits of sharing that information. So one funny story that I remember is my mentor that I talked about before. He, I asked him, hey, why are these labs so protective about their budget sheets? And they tell you, it's top secret, it's classified, I don't like my competitors to see it, so on and so forth. So he told me two things. One, a lab puts in a lot of effort to build these things. They would have paid a lot of money to a consultant or probably like a senior metrologist who built that. So they don't want to lose that competitive advantage. Fair enough. But the second one is a highlight. He said, when people are so protective about their data and their calculations, there's a high chance that they fear there's something wrong in there, which nobody wants to see. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So, and it proved to be right in my experience, because what we usually do is when we do presentations, to prove the capability of our platform, what we tell our customers is, hey, give us one of your sheets. One of our engineers will build it for you, and then you can do a side-by-side comparison. You can fill in the data, get the values out, and do a validation to sign it off, so that you can be 100% confident about our capabilities, right? And we spend a significant amount of time. Some customers, big ones, they come back with a batch of sheets, 1, 2, 3, 4 from every department, every single category, to 100% make sure that they're investing on the right product. But there were cases where my team came back and told me, hey, we are not getting data that is matching their sheets, because when we apply the formula, one of the cells were pointed to a wrong cell, maybe while updating the Excel sheet. The lookup is looking into another field, and it's not taking the right data, so we are not going to get a match here. Right. So then I have to go back and tell my prospective customer, who is not a customer yet, that, hey, you guys have a problem in your sheet. Right. So that's a very sticky situation. It can go either ways. But what my mentor told me, it proved to be right, because when people are very protective about something which is common knowledge, there is nothing more than physics and statistics out there. So you are not inventing anything. You are using the basic principles. So if you are holding on to something saying that you cannot give it away or share it because of proprietary reasons, then you are not confident about what you have, and you are afraid that the data that you're sharing would expose some flaws within your process, or things that.
Sure.
And most labs have this as a black box. Probably some metrologists who build it, he or she may have retired or moved out of the company, and they've been using it like a black box over and over again. So these sort of issues arise, but I'm sure there's going to be a time when you cannot stop it, because as we know, our veterans are getting moving to retirement. Mm-hmm. So we have new people coming in. So without knowledge sharing, I'm not worried about how this industry is going to survive based on the need of the economy. But what I'm afraid of is we will reach a point where we do not have people who are capable enough to cater to the standards of the industry. So that can only happen if you are more transparent and share data and training materials and documentations, what you guys are doing, which I really think should be done in scale. More people should take up, and there should be more adoption on that front, so that we do not miss the curve again. Right. So
and it's very common out there, people resistance even to the training and stuff. And then now some of the labs that for years have said, we don't need training, which is insane to me. But, now they're running out of people. They're hiring off the streets, and definitely causing an issue. We also chatted about things like those, there's the taxonomy and things of that nature, those projects coming up. And I, through the school and other partnerships, we have blockchain things that are going to combine with that I think will make the data sharing easier, right? Because I think down the road it would be amazing if, I sell you a piece of equipment that's been used, you get the token with it, the blockchain token that gives you every single piece of data ever with it, but also, something like Henry's talking about, or I think it was Henry that brought it up, like if you can opt in, right? Where down the road, you can opt in your data and in some ways maybe hide the customer, because I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, that has to be anonymous. That has to be, because you're dealing with, how do you know when it's not? Like military, you get ITAR, you get DFAST, ITAR. Remember all this stuff, Ryan? So you sign off on some of this, and then you have to protect that data.
Right.
And even Boeing told me one time that they had the torque wrenches, they were concerned with the data on this. And it was just because they were wireless and they needed encryption methods, because they said, someone will stand outside the fence and try to figure out, the torque they're applying and where they're applying it to steal some of their proprietary. And I'm like, really? Like, they care about, 30 Newton meters being applied? He's like, yeah, they do. And I said, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I said that would, to me, I would say, where do they know where I am on the plane? Well, so anyway, that's, but yeah, I mean, if we just take the thing that we could if we agree, the first step is agreeing, getting a bunch of metrologists in the room and asking for a racehorse, you get a camel.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well, sometimes you just
no
have
one
to
ever
present a solution, and the industry can sign off on it.
and drive it, because
Yeah.
like look at this, the decision rules and all this other stuff that's got binary, non-binary, all that fun stuff that we're in. Hey, may be good, maybe bad. Though, yeah, if we agree on it, the taxonomy, like we're doing something different than Germany's doing. Like, why would we do this as a world as a global like group of metrologists? Why are we so entrenched in it's got to be our way, it's got to be the US way, it's got to be the German way?
Right.
ASTM's better than ISO way. Like, I don't think that way. I think they both have their merit.
We talked at length about just even the committee influence, right? Like, hey, my company feels that this shouldn't be a part of the standard, so now we're going to take it, even though we're not going to put it in a standard at ASTM or something like that, But that's a whole other ball of wax, right?
That's a whole nother one. It's just that taxonomy to agree to it, that we can all have consistent certs, that a MetKey can go out and say, okay, I build a super cool tool that'll go out and can pull all the stuff off everything.
Right.
It's just,
well, and even further than that, then Fluke can implement the same, blockchain token and how they track, their taxonomy, and then Adatel the same, and then BMX the same, and then we have, then it's easy for me, on the training side to tie that into competencies and things like that, right? Like, hey, we train on these taxonomies that then can be used on all of these various types of equipment, that type of thing.
Can you imagine how cool it would be? I know some people have it now, and Sandeep might have seen, but so your meter fails cal, and you can do a reverse trace. You can figure out every standard. You can look at, maybe if you're doing it, hopefully you're doing it, you can look at your SPCs and everything else. And just within like a minute, you can pull 3 items where I've calibrated 2,000 items with this. 3 of them are impacted based on all of this data, and these are the
Right.
3, and then look at the uncertainties of everything and say, okay, would it have made a difference on a pass fail criteria or whatever decision, whatever you're using? No or yes, and recall them. But we don't see that. We don't see these but we could do almost all of this on the fly. That just a bug that comes out and says, hey, you might want to reissue certs to your customers that say your uncertainty is 2.7 instead of 2.6, right?
Right. Yeah. So we do have that, forward and backward traceability reports in our application. However, I don't know how much studies are done on top of that with the data that we provide to improve the process, because always quality is something which is not most people would add as a revenue making department in their company. So quality is always seen as a good to have than a must have. So study of historical data, technology helps you do that. If you collect that data, and technology will take care of all the slicing and dicing and all the charting and everything. But at the same time, you need to have that focus, unless whatever reports you have, you're not going to be, you're not going to make sense out of it or apply those corrective actions into your process. So it's really, really important. But at the same time, unfortunately, that's how it works, right? You look at your revenue making verticals, and quality is not directly tied to that. Of course, quality is, but it's
viewed
somewhere
as a
there.
necessary evil, but
It's not.
it's a friction
It's
point.
not it's the invisible hand that holds everything. So
It is probably your number one revenue generator that no one appreciates until it's bad. It's what's the saying about your health?
Yeah.
Your health is the number one thing you take for granted until you don't have it. The same is with quality.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, crap. I have this equipment failure. Guess what? Yeah, you weren't doing your checks. If you were doing your checks, the equipment failure, okay. I got 2 weeks of work I got to look at instead of 3 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, believe me, when the places that I've taught SPC to, and they're like, we don't need to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then how many recalls have you had, but we're getting closer to the end of time, and I don't want to miss out on my favorite question asked Sandeep is, where do you think AI is going to come into everything?
Oh, yeah.
When's the MetKey ChatGPT, right? Like, it seems like it's going to be in everywhere. I know at the conference, one of the things I liked, I think you and I were chatting about it, being able to have something that can take data with me while I'm on site, but I can be hands-free, but not just so blindly recording something, right? It's something that's actually somewhat paying attention to the data I'm giving and being like, hey, the last thing you gave was this. Are you sure that was correct? That type of thing. I think there's a lot of interesting use cases when we're talking software, data collection, and AI, and where we could go. Do you want to chat about that for a minute there, Sandeep? What do you think?
Right. So, I would like to see AI as a positive contributor into the industry, but at the same time, it's not going to disrupt the industry in a way that we would, we would just envision it, right at the top of our head. For example, how I use the analogy of a washing machine, right? So when if humans had to build a humanoid robot that would wash the clothes for them, we would never reach that point even now, right? But what washing machine did is it solved the problem, but the paradigm in which the problem is solved is different. So AI is going to be a paradigm shifter in every industry. So metrology is not going to be different. So apart from all the fancy use cases that we see, ChatGPT generating text and content and so on and so forth, there's going to be LLMs which are trained on specific use cases, which would look into quality. Could be a great place where AI can do a lot of things.
QA checks, just automatically running through QA checks. Yeah.
Because the human intuition, you can teach that human intuition into AI, so that if the data doesn't look right, or you're using a standard which is out of calibration, so on and so forth, which may not catch the human eye at the, or you are not following your customer specifications. The customer gave you a long documentation, which your quality department read and made notes and, put that into the software. We have that in place right now. But at the same time, these are text. These are unstructured text. So all these things, read that text like a human would do. Read that documentation and compare with the certificate and make sure that, hey, what the customer asked for are all the specifications being followed in the final result. Right. So all these sort of things can be done using AI, and that's where AI is going to shift the game for us. It's going to make the quality checks better, and also better predictability of failures. Like Henry was saying, if you are able to do that study with the data that you have from your historical certificates and whatnot, you would be able to better predict the calibration intervals and the failures of the equipment, so that you can adjust the cycles and make it more economical to calibrate. But at the same time, if you're failing equipment, you have to you need to either decommission it or get that calibrated on much more frequent intervals, so on and so forth. So AI is going to come in on multiple different levels. It's not going to be a one silver bullet that is going to solve all of the problems for us, but all the small components that goes into the metrology as a process, there's going to be AI. There's going to be an AI tool or an agent that would be able to solve that problem. But most importantly, we cannot rely on ChatGPT to do metrology for us, because ChatGPT is generic data and it doesn't have the guardrails to the data, the results that they provide for the metrology perspective. So there needs to be specific trained LLMs, and these LLMs are only going to be as good as the knowledge that we provide them. So the need for data being shared and used for training is going to be really, really, really important.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah. Henry, you know what he's talking about reminds me of in your domain. Like if I was applying it to force, like think of AI. If it's a it knows you're doing a force device, and then you're putting in the data, right? And you're putting in the measurements, but you're also putting in the raw millivolt to volt. Yep. And then it notices in the data, it's like we can see that it's bad, but it also will tell you, oh, it looks like it's been overranged because this bridge is this or whatever. It could give you you could get it trained to where it can tell from the data some of the faults in something like that. Because forces, if you've never done force, people listening, like when something fails, like it could be a single strain gauge out of what, 4 or how, like multiple,
16,
6,
32, whatever. Yeah, depending on, and it could tell you things like, hey, the shift in what I'm more interested in is like you start getting a data set and it starts saying, look, I think mechanical in nature, maybe there's a weight chattering. If you don't have geometric tolerances right, or someone didn't set something up correctly, it could tell you that, hey, there's a big shift over the last 5 years. This thing is compared with the last 4 sets of data, this thing has really shifted. And then maybe the technician says, oh, I wired it wrong. No wonder. Or maybe it has shifted and the customer has overloaded it. It's not going to know everything, but the thing is, those tools can help us make better measurements and flag things. There are some simple things mathematically, but Sandeep is so right. If you throw stuff into ChatGPT, ChatGPT is really, really good because I use it and I say, if you say I want to, AMA style references on a paper, ChatGPT is really freaking good at that. If you say if you load in NIST 811 and say, look at my document for being technically correct, ChatGPT can do a pretty great analysis on reading things really quickly and catching errors you do not see, like, oh, I forgot this percentage, or I didn't italicize this K. I mean, you write a 20-page paper, you get lost in it eventually. Like it's upside down, and these large language models can fix it in seconds. It's just boom. I've read it. Quality documents, another one that people get like, oh, are these copyrighted? That you could say, I know for us with OSHA, we did all these OSHA guidelines, training, and everything else. And what I did at the end is somebody else did all the work. I just fed it in and said, hey, are we weak with anything? Are we missing anything? And it said, you got everything, but here's 3 things you might want to pay more detail to. And I was like, okay, this is really good stuff. So that could help. That could increase our training. So now somebody may not get hurt because of a large language model said you had it, but you didn't do it probably as well as you needed to do. And people would have overlooked this because you live it every day. So it's a blind spot. I think they call it, Sandeep, they call it blind. All of our organizations have blind spots.
Right.
Right.
Well, it's the same reason. It's the same reason we do peer review at the school, because there has been things that I have put out that I've worked 3-6 months on, and just like you're saying, you don't see your mistakes, and then someone else sees it and it's like, did you mean to say this? And then you're like, I didn't even hear that anymore. Like you don't even hear your own words.
ChatGPT is good for that too. Like if you're like, oh, I'm clear as can be, I load a PowerPoint presentation and it says, hey, on slide 4, you're saying something that, that makes sense to me, but no one else is going to get that.
That's me all the time. I have Ryanisms. So I'm glad that can help.
And another most important thing that I believe LLMs could help is on training, because right now the competency metrics that we talk about, right? So we have a competency metrics in our product which will help the lab manager mark the competency, so that when an instrument comes in, based on the competency and the procedure that the technicians trained on, you get the list of technicians and schedule the job, right? But the problem is it's certified by the lab manager. right? Most of the time, it's sort of like you check a box and you map it. However, I was talking to Ryan about, when somebody joins the company or before you even hire them, if there's a way to run a test, with them and check their competency and mark, hey, this guy is very strong in these areas and he has got to do a lot of work on these many areas, so that you can get the real competency out of a person, and you could do that consistently over quarters and years to get that person's competency sharpened up over the years, right? And also it could be tied to the work that they do. Are they, if there are any quality problems that is created out of his work, so that you can not to blame them, but to, feed that back into the training system so that it would focus on those areas, right? So all these things can be automated with the help of LLMs, because, all this knowledge can be fed into those LLMs, and LLMs can, put those, find flags out of that when the real work happens, right? So so this is going to be very it's going to be a very interesting decade that's in front of us, because a larger part of our industry is going to retire, but at the same time we have a new set of people coming in, and this industry is not going to go anywhere. So it's on us to set those infrastructure out there to help those new people learn and take this industry forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, because
that's awesome.
Yeah, because going forward, it's almost, you can say whatever you want about our history and metrology, and it's good, but there's definitely, if we could go back, I'm sure there's things that we would do differently, just seeing the direction that the whole manufacturing space went. But we're almost starting at a brand new slate, right? In a lot of ways, because there's so much turnover in the industry. So if you're listening to this and you view where you're working as, hey, we're set in stone, this is the way we always done it, no one's ever going to change, I can't stress enough that now is, like, any day, any moment is the time to change, because we are influxing a whole bunch of new people. And if we do it right, if we train everybody right, and we stop the bad habits and the stuff we've been talking about for years, Henry, right? Like my famous story of the first time I went to an on-site where a guy got fired previously, and he somehow achieved here in the middle of Utah a perfect vacuum, which can only be achieved in space, but somehow he achieved one here in Utah multiple years straight, right? 5 years in a row.
Sweet.
But somehow,
I didn't know Utah was on the map for that.
But those are the things, right? Like stuff like that, we can change that any day. Right. And it's the same thing when you're talking about training. And that is a big focus with our Train the Trainer is how do we influence the new industry, right? How do we incorporate the tools that are out there and develop new tools, right? And so I think you're valuable in that, Sandeep. And I know there are some projects that and we won't obviously announce anything now, but some projects that Sign and MetKey are going to be working on together to try and coordinate some of these things, right? So exciting stuff there in the future.
Hey, quick question for Sandeep, because I was lost in that, and for people listening, who is the ideal customer? And it can be everybody, though. Listening, is the majority of your customer base like small, medium companies, or large companies? Do you have any ideal, just a metrology lab?
Right. So it's not the size of the company, it's what they do. So that's why we position ourselves as the solution for commercial labs. Whoever does calibration as a business for third-party companies, that's our ideal customers. That also includes manufacturers who manufacture equipment, measuring equipment, which they sell and then do warranty service or after-sale service. So a bunch of our customers are big manufacturers who sell equipments across the globe, and then they recall them for periodic calibration. So that's also included.
So basically, anyone that wants to semi-automate their calibration as far as and organize their data and have it neat
That's
and
right.
presentable.
That's right. So any internal labs who are just doing the so-called mistraceable calibrations, they may not make a lot of value out of our product because the money you spent may not justify it. That's why we stick with the commercial ones, because it's their daily bread and butter. So that's where we come in and we add a lot of value. I'm not opposed to the other labs, but at the same time, that's where we have found the best fit.
One quick comment on that, because you couldn't be more right, Sandeep, because it's someone listening that's in a governmental lab or a contracting lab, that which we all consider an internal lab, right? That's an internal to to the customer. Now, if you've only been in those labs, you have no idea what Sandeep's talking about customer requirements. Every single one of your customers could have a list of 100 items that they want specially recorded, or maybe the way that you write serial numbers, or I had one that you mark a special color on their stickers so that they knew the quarter that it was due. Like, customer requirements, just having things like that trackable in something is extremely important, because a lot of times, from what I've seen, they're just like written out. And
they suck.
Yeah,
they absolutely suck.
Yeah,
we've changed our requirements, but it's not on the first page and highlighted for you. It's on page 32.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So tracking those historical requirements has been a big thing for us forever, because like you said, there is this business of it, and then there's the science of it. So there needs to be a balance between these two, so that the quality is not turning into a red tape, whereas you are only focusing on making money, whereas you throw away all the checks and balances. So there needs to be these two things needs to go in hand. You need to have the best quality process in place, but at the same time, it should not slow you down from being in a very efficient business. So we take care of those two areas without compromising on any of those.
Exactly. Now, to wrap up, I did want to give you your promotional minute from MSC. Weren't you? You were announcing something there. Do you mind doing your announcement?
Right. So we are, like I mentioned before, we are shifting ourselves from a calibration software company into a measurement technology company. So the first step towards that is to come up with a unified platform where you can have service providers who are our current customers, the calibration labs, the asset owners, and multiple other pieces that goes into the industry, including training, so on and so forth. So right now we are building the technology infrastructure. We have come out with the beta version of it. We did a small sneak peek during this MSC. So we want to outgrow ourselves in terms of being a small commercial calibration software company to become the platform which the industry needs, where there's going to be data sharing, and there's going to be transactions, and there's going to be any tool that a metrologist or a metrology business would need at their disposal. Right. So we are moving towards that direction. We are investing a lot of money from our own money that we make from our business into that, building into a new platform. It may not make sense economically right now for us, because it's been 8 years, and now it's a time we are making some money which is surplus, but we are pumping that back into the system so that we can build a better product. Sure. So I want to be our company, I want my company to be known for being the technology partner and a solution partner for the metrology business, not as just a software metrology software company. So this is the first step towards that, and you will start to see more updates of that coming out in the coming months. I've been very less active in LinkedIn, if you notice, because basically I'm spending all my time on product reviews and everything. So
no time for LinkedIn.
If I'm not talking to my customers, then I would be sitting on meetings trying to review all the work that our team has been doing so far. So yeah, so it's going to be a very interesting year that is coming up, also the upcoming years. So you will start hearing from us more about our new platform, so on and so forth, in the coming months. So I'll keep everyone posted. So
And
you can find me on LinkedIn.
You'll be at NCSLI?
Hopefully, yes, because one of the things that I try to do is to the reason why I come to MSC is because MSC is close to us.
Sure.
It's in California. There's less travel. Every day I move, step out of my office, I come back to a backlog of reviews and everything. So I try to stay in my office, do my work. The only reason I would go there, funnily I would say, is to show my face around that I'm not an AI avatar. I'm a real human.
No, I hear that. I had to. I'm in the same situation. When you're a small company, you're an entrepreneur. Sometimes I have to choose one conference a year. This year, I'm hoping I'll make it out to Ohio, but I'm in the same position, Sandeep. So I feel for you.
Yeah.
And let's start that. Why don't we just have one a year? Why do we have to dilute the market when they're not? The attendance is down, and
I think I have been preaching this for a couple of years now.
Yeah, technical papers. It's hard to write every year. The same people are writing it, like a 2-year gap or a conference every other year, or at least just one conference a year, and not all these different sessions and trying to do everything else. It's just diluting at some point. Our marketplace is unfortunately, it's too small now. NCSL is not drawing 1,400 people anymore.
And I do. We have to end the episode, but I do, on this specific topic, I do have some LinkedIn stuff that's going to be coming out, because the honest question is, if you own a lab, if you run a lab, what would a conference have to offer for you to send your people to it, right? Because obviously right now, point blank, if we're talking third-party CalLab, it's very few and far between that's anyone sending out. And so when you have
government stop traveling.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. When you have times like this where government is having some issues with travel and budgetary stuff and political things, then when that's down, there's nothing to bolster it, because there's no commercial side, right? So the honest question that has to be asked is, what is it? And then if that is provided, then labs need to help
support. What is it?
it?
How do we do it as a community? How do we get everybody together? And asking people to go to 2 or 3 is probably not a realistic per year.
And you might be right. Like at times when the conferences was the largest, there wasn't really an internet presence like there is today. And so but anyway, Sandeep, so you're saying LinkedIn's the best place to get out to you personally, and then obviously the MetKey, the website, metkey.com, is that the best place to go?
That's That's metquay.com. So you can find us there, or I'm always on LinkedIn. I try my best to reply to all the messages that come in. So even though I don't post much, I'm always listening. So whatever that comes in, I try to respond to that as quick as possible. So that's the best place to reach out to me. Yeah.
Well, Sandeep, thank you once again for coming on the show. Henry, go ahead.
And when are you writing a script, or will you write a script that anybody that requests a NIST ID or NIST traceability, that it sends them to an educational site that
that is amazing,
where they can learn better? That's the script. That's the secret sauce. Sandeep's writing it. No, he's not. But
so
that's such a good idea.
It's a fancy word, because other parts of the globe, they say non-accredited calibration. So it's more representative of the kind of work being done on that scope. So it's a fancy word which make it sound a little more legitimate. So
SI traceability.
They want to throw in that NIST, right?
Yeah.
Well, Henry, do you have anything that you want to say before we head out?
No. Awesome talking about large language platforms, AI, all this stuff, and MetKey just sounds awesome for people to go out and take a look.
Perfect.
Right, and I really enjoyed speaking to you, Henry, and Ryan. We had a chat before, but it was the first time I was having this long chat with you. So
Yes.
thank
And
you for having me,
for
both
the
of you.
technical issues.
Oh, no worries. It fails for the first time all the time for me. So it never happened. I never got it right the first time.
Well,
so
don't worry. We're going to have you back on in future seasons. You're our software, especially as AI builds. We got to chat about those things.
Blockchain
Absolutely.
AI.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you.
Well,
for
thank you
coming
so
on,
much.
and thank you all for watching.